All right, we're here at the Ryonet Screen Printing Academy with Mark Berryman and our class. Today we're going to cover how to print a professional white. We were at a trade show a week ago, and probably the biggest question we had at the trade show is how can I get a nice, smooth professional white on my t-shirt? Well, Mark knows most about printing white in my experience, so I'm going to have him explain that to the class.
Okay, first thing we're going to start with is the white itself. I think a lot of times people will get their white and they'll leave it in their garage where the temperature is cool. A lot of times the temperature will drop, and this will make the ink a little bit stiffer. So what we want to do is, before you start printing, is stir it the best you can, get it all worked in, and then go ahead and load your screen. By the way, this screen is a 110 mesh screen. We've done nothing extra, no special extra coatings on the back or anything. We just pulled it off and burned it. We'll be using a 70 durometer squeegee, which is pretty much the normal. And another tip that I would pass on to anybody would be to, if you're starting, use a bunch of ink. You're going to use more ink than you normally would use. A lot of times if you're doing light garments, you'll use just enough ink to get through the job. Beginners might throw a little bit more in, but the whole idea here is we want to apply this to the shirt, onto the top of the shirt, not drive it in. That's the whole misconception of a lot of people that think, well, we'll think white, but a lot of times, you know, you're doing darks. 80% of all the stuff that you do will be on dark garments, so we need to lay a good foundation. So another good tip here is off contact. If we bring this down, you can see that I've got considerable more amount of off contact than you normally would get. I like to raise it up a little bit more. So if we were looking at the screen when we were pulling the squeegee, it would look like an upside down wave. It would pull off the back, and as you pulled along, it would just would come back, and then it would actually just detach. Another good tip, we've got our flash heater on. If you've got cold boards, it doesn't hurt to give them a little bit warm. Not hot, but get them warm, because after you get going, everything will warm up and it'll start to thin out. So I'm going to warm that up. And I'm also going to show you how I load too, just to make it a little easier on everybody out there. The way that I load is, I used to run an automatic press, and we would load, basically, if this is on a stack, I would load them upside down. What I'm going to do is we're going to take this shirt and divide it in half. That way we don't get anything hung up. So I'm going to split it open, and then I'm going to let go and pull it all the way to the back. And then we just kind of tweak this and pull it forward. And that's really all there is to it. If we divide the shirt up, we have less chance of the shirt going all directions. You can see if you do this, we do this a lot. So we want to make sure that we get it straight and on there. And you'll probably be using a little more spray tack on dark shirts. So here's what I'm going to do. The first thing is pre-flood your screen. It'll make it a little bit easier. You may not have to do this after a while because your ink will start to thin. But the way that I do this,
You flood that screen when it's up or down off the shirt.
we want to flood the screen while it's above the shirt. We don't want to do it while it's on the shirt, because it could go through and get on. Then you'll be ruining your shirt. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to start my run. Now this is, I've done a couple of these, and I usually use an angle about like this, really low angle. And we want to grab a little bit of ink here. You can see there's a lot more ink down here than you would normally use. Since we're laying it onto the garment instead of into the garment, we want to lay it nice and even. So I'm going to pull my stroke back, and this screen is going to pop up, which it did. You can flood back if you wish. This is our first layer. That's the base layer. It's pretty white by itself, but once we run it through the dryer, it's going to darken up a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to flash it. We're not going to cure it, we're going to flash it. This is key. So we want it dry just to the touch. normally we would be revolving all these around. You know, one here and then we'd do the next and so on and so forth. This is an air flash dryer, so it's going to work a lot quicker. I'm just going to bring it back and carefully touch it. This side here didn't quite make it all the way.
How much time, Mark?
Well, the time is going to be determined by what kind of flash unit you use. If you're in a different region of the country where it's warmer, it's going to be a little bit quicker. If you're somewhere where it's cold, it might take a little longer. And as you get moving, revolving all these, you might start out with, say, might be a 10-second flash. But as the boards warm up, you may have to raise this up or move it a little faster, one or the other. So now that we've got this, if you're doing one at a time, like one board at a time, you have to make sure that it dries, that it cools down. If it doesn't cool down, it's going to stick. So here's our second one. We've already got it preloaded. Same kind of angle, real nice and strict pull, not a lot of pressure. And I let go. And we've got a professional looking white. That is white as you can get. Nice and smooth. And that's all there is to
So
do
you don't
it.
need a lot of pressure when you're doing that?
There's hardly any pressure because now that we've built a foundation, we're no longer on the shirt, we're on plastic, so it lays on top of the plastic. You'll find that the first layer is a little bit tougher to pull, but the second layer has a foundation, it's very easy to pull across it.
So your first layer has a lot of pressure, second layer is pretty much none.
Well, it's not really that much pressure, it's more of a stroke. Like, I'm not bearing down on it. That's probably the problem that most people have is they just, they can't get it through. But if you stir your inks, this is actually loosening it up quite a bit. So people that have garages and they store the ink in the garages or come in when it's cold, they just figure, oh, that's the way it should be, but they don't have any concerns. So that's why I say stir it. Get it all worked around. And then start it. Do a couple pulls, do a couple practice until you get comfortable. Start your stroke way back here so you can get a handle on what your leverage is going to be. If you don't do that, then it comes out all chunky.
Can I dry that shirt, Mark?
Sure can.